Welcome back. And oh, wait, one moment. Hey, Ian, is this you? Man, you're supposed to be presenting like in just now. Now. Yeah, I know you're on vacation. You've got to get back to your computer. There's just no way we can delay this. Everybody's waiting for you. Okay, you ready? All right, here we go. Oh, I'm sorry about that. So Ian's on vacation, and yet here he is, and he's going to be telling you about his journey to CWNE. You got the chance to visit with several CWNEs and others on the journey on the panel earlier today. Now you get to hear from Ian, I hope. Let's find out. Ian, are you ready? Go ahead.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day. My name's Ian Tearle. I'm a Wi-Fi specialist for Arista, and this is my journey from being a diesel fitter to a CWNE number 347. Many years ago, when I was young, fitter, stronger, a lot less grey, a lot less cuddly than I am now, I wanted to join the army. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to have an adventure. Okay, well, that couldn't happen because I had asthma as a kid, so I couldn't run very far, and no one wants an unfit, non-running soldier. Well, that's fine. Okay, let's become a spaceman. You know, you strap yourself into a rocket, off you go. You have an adventure. You see the world. There's a slight pattern occurring here. I wanted something that I could have an adventure. I wanted a challenge. I just didn't want to go and work in an office. An office can be fine for most people, but it just wasn't for me. Or I could become a millionaire. Now, to become a millionaire, you have to kind of work, or you can do a bit of dodgy dealing, or you can duck and weave and bob and weave, but, you know, that wasn't allowed. And my mum said, you got to go and get a real job. And my dad said, you got to go and get a real job. So basically, I went to college back in 1987. And yes, I am in that photo somewhere. I'm not going to point it out to you. I went up to college and I did an apprenticeship. An apprenticeship is like a traineeship. In the UK, we leave school at 16, or we did. We did back in those days. It was a college away from home. You can see it was Bircham Newton. I'm a sensitive little fella, so I got homesick a lot, but I just kept trying, and I kept trying, and I kept working hard, and I'd get on the old landline, and I'd ring my mum every now and then, or I'd ring my dad and make sure everything was well. But I tried, and I kept working harder and harder, and I got somewhere, and I ended up becoming well, what did I become? I became a diesel fitter. Basically, what does that mean? That means I fixed little diggers. I fixed really, really big diggers. I was involved in fixing the big coal mine dumper trucks. If you've ever driven one of those coal mine dumper trucks, they may not go very fast, but they are exceedingly cool and fun to drive. But then I got to deal with all sorts of tools while I was doing my job. You know, when you look at the size of the bucket on that thing, sometimes you've got to change the little the claws at the front. Well, sometimes you'd have to cut those off with a cutting torch. So we'd use plasma cutting torches. Plasma cutting torches. You know, it was great. It was amazing. At the end of every week, when you're doing your apprenticeship and you're still learning, you're training, if you imagine a big hangar where these things go in, and each one has a bay. Goes from one end of the workshop to the other end of the workshop, and you've got doors at each end. Big doors, huge doors, you can get these diggers in and out. And you probably had 4 or 5 of these bays. And each apprentice was responsible for a bay. And what you would do, at the end of the week, you'd spread sawdust down on the floor Friday afternoon. You'd start rubbing it in with a broom. So you'd be scrubbing it in, trying to get all the oil and the diesel and the hydraulic fluid and everything out of the floor. And then you brush it to the end of the workshop, and then you put it in a wheelbarrow, and then you'd wheel it off and throw it in the bin. I was a little bit clever in that. I sussed out that you could get one of these. What you could do is you'd spread your sawdust, you'd broom it into the floor, you'd smile a lot because you're thinking outside the box. You're thinking, I'm being real clever here. And then you get this, and you drive up and down the workshop, scraping this blade across the floor, getting all the sawdust up. And yes, I did get in trouble for it. I just thought I was thinking outside the box. I thought I was being a little bit clever. The problem is, if you've ever worked with diesel or you've ever worked with hydraulics, diesel, when it gets into your skin, is horrible. We never used to wear gloves. We just used to, get on with it. Hydraulic oil. You split a hydraulic pipe and the hydraulic comes pumping out of you, and it can come out of pressure, but when it's in your overalls, it just stinks. It's horrible. In the end, I basically got bored. I decided that there must be more to life than going home stinking every day. There must be more to life than getting up early, cycling all the way to the yard, working hard, eating sandwiches, and then going home and being smelly again. So I had to decide, and I wanted to change. I had to step up to the plate. I had to think, what do I want to do? What am I good at? I didn't really know what I was good at. But one of my friends said, well, you got a bit of the gift of the gab. You can talk to everyone. You're a friendly kind of guy. You just try and get on with people. So I'm afraid to say I went to the dark side. I became a salesperson. But you know what? That salesperson, that job, that career actually helped me in my path to becoming a CWNE. Because I did find it really useful. The things that it taught me, the questions that it taught me to ask, were good enough to teach me that if a customer has a problem and you do not know the answer to that problem, then you can't ever fix that problem. So, for example, if we look at how many SSIDs do we put in the air, and the customer says to me, oh, I've got this SSID and I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to do this, and then, oh, don't forget that, I've got to do this with my IoT, and then I want to do this on my BYOD, and we all know that this is a bad thing. But you have to ask the question why, and sometimes you have to challenge the customer, and you have to ask the question. So this sales role did actually give me the confidence that I have now to ask these tough questions. But also asking these tough questions, you've got to make sure that you understand the reason why you're asking these questions. So I stayed on the dark side for a while, and I found this stuff called networking. And it made sense to me. Networking was like, if you plug this wire in here and you plug this wire in here, and it all talks. Now, this really intrigued me. So what I did is I started talking to the technical guys, the pre-sales guys in the company. I started asking them questions. And we had this big, thick yellow, cable. And it was BNC cable. And the guy said to me, just in around, I didn't know he was just in around, that what you do is you put this vampire tap into it, and if you don't put the vampire tap on the end of the cable, then all the bits would fall out. And I was like, I was mortified. Think about it, you put all this networking together, and just because you forgot the thing on the end of the cable, all these bits are going to fall out on the floor. I had no idea why plumbing had anything to do with networking. Plumbing and networking, vampire taps. Why would I have a vampire in my network? But the point about this is, and I made a joke out of it, there's a lot of things that we don't understand if we don't ask the right questions. But I found out that this big thick cable did the same as the other Cat5 cable. But it still had Ethernet. Well, I thought Ethernet was the cable, and I got confused by this. Luckily, I got employed by a company called Cabletron. And a lot of us remember Cabletron. And I flew off to New Hampshire for 3 weeks, and we were given training, and it was absolutely great because it talks about hubs. It taught us what a hub was. It taught us what a switch was. It taught us what Ethernet was. But it educated me. So I started out in a networking background, and then I found this smoke and mirrors stuff, this stuff called Wi-Fi. I mean, how does that work? It's a bit of sprinkling of pixie dust, and then you've got a bit of shaving of unicorn horn, and then what you do is you mix that up in a big pot, and the phone talks to the base station, the wireless access point, the WAP, as people don't like to call it, or the AP. But there's a communication method that happens out. I wanted to know how that worked. So I made a decision at that point that I wasn't going to become a security guy. I didn't want to learn about firewalls. I wasn't become a routing and switching guy. I'd done my CCNA, but I didn't want to become a routing and switching guy. I wasn't going to become a VoIP guy. I wanted to become a wireless specialist. I wanted to know how this smoke and mirrors and this magic happened, and what might break it. So Wi-Fi then came into my life, and that's an important point, because this is probably back around about, I would probably say, late 90s, early 2000s. So how did I become a CWNE? Well, you don't just become a CWNE. You have to do your CWNA, your CWAP, you do your CWSP. We didn't have a DP back then. Did we have a DP? I think we had a DP. But the point was that you had to pass these exams and you had to learn. So that meant I had to read a lot of things. And I like books. I like to feel a book in my hand and I like to read it. Why did I choose to do these as opposed to doing a Xerox exam or another Cisco exam or a Motorola exam? Here's one for you, or an Extracom exam. That taught me how to configure things. But it didn't necessarily teach me how to configure things in the right way, whereby I would question that. If we start looking at DTIM settings and how that affects a voice call, you never, you know, the book never told you how to configure that or what it actually did when you configured it. So I liked reading. I always ask questions. Remember, that comes from my sales background. You know, never be afraid to ask questions. We're all here to help. We're all here to share knowledge. We're all here to communicate. I found the CWNEP. I wanted to learn from that, but I learned on the job as well. There is nothing more educational than working out why the access point on the floor above is causing problems with the floor on the AP on the floor below, because it's a wooden floor and they're on the same channel with the same. Hang on a minute, I can see what's going on here. You learn. And look, I'm not telling you to go off and have an interview when I talk about this bit, but I applied for a job. It was to work for a manufacturer. And I was interviewed by this fella, CWNE #1. You know who he is. The great thing about this was he questioned, he challenged, but he taught me. He taught me while we were doing the interview. I had a base understanding at this moment in time. I got certain things, but then when we talked about other things, the light bulb moment, things happen, you know. So by going for this interview, by going for a job that I had a belief that I could do, but had not really the skills to do it, it taught me to go out and learn more. It taught me to challenge myself further. To this day, I still send that person emails. I still send him emails. I've been on training courses with him when he's been doing other training courses, and I still learn from him. And I'm a CWNE. We are never too proud, too old, too clever not to learn. So always challenge yourself. Always think about this. Again, you've got to challenge yourself. Remember that bit I said about thinking outside of the box? When I used the digger, do you remember when I used the digger to push the sawdust down? You got to challenge yourself. You got to think about being outside of that comfort zone. You might not have already have a CWNA, and you're thinking, yeah, that's great. I'm okay. I don't really need to do anything else. And you start looking at something like CWAP. Ooh, hang on a minute. I was lucky. I got invited to the CWAP beta course in Atlanta back in 2011. So I fly to Atlanta. This is a great adventure for me. There's beer. I'm on an airplane. It's great. I walk into the room and there's another British guy in the room, a guy called Peter McKenzie. I had no idea who Peter McKenzie was. But there's another Brit. When we're abroad and the Brits are together, great. But then I realised there was Dave Coleman and Devin Aiken and Andrew Von Darcy, various other people that were in this room that scared the life out of me. I realised that I was well out of my comfort zone. I sat at the back of the room like a child. I was 30 years of age. Don't go doing the maths on that, please. I was 30 years of age. I was in America. I was in a room full of guys that were very, very clever, that I'd read their books. I'd watched some, you know, my God, it was amazing. I asked some questions and I learned a lot. I learned a lot of things. I realized that my knowledge was not as good as I thought it was. I walked away from that with one thing, and I will still use that to this day. And I think Peter still uses it in his training course. You know, if you guys, if you're a CWNA now or CWSP and you want to go further, always remember this one thing: the packet will never lie. The CWAP teaches you why that packet will never lie. And to this day, I still use it. It's a really important saying. So what do we have to do next? Well, once you become a CWNP, CWAP, or CWSP, you want to go a little bit further. So over the years of being an SE and doing wired networking while developing as a Wi-Fi guy, made me realize that a lot of myths and interesting and often extremely weird practices can take place in Wi-Fi and in our industry. And as CWNAs and CWSPs, we have to go off and we have to educate, we have to learn, we have to teach, we have to share that knowledge. I will never be the cleverest guy in the room, but the one thing that I will always try and do is I will listen, I will learn, and I will share my knowledge and my experience in the correct manner. There is nothing more fun than talking to someone about Wi-Fi 5 AC and talking about multi-user MIMO. And why really it doesn't work that well when you start about the sounding and you talk about the clients and then you talk about the grouping and you actually see that light bulb moment and you see someone go, oh, I get that. Oh no, I'm not going to turn that on. It's so satisfying. It's great. So you don't always have to be the cleverest person in the room, but always try and be the teacher. And as a CWNE, and I've taken that from another person. I've taken that from Devin Aiken. Devin Aiken has taught me that over the years. If you can teach and share knowledge, it's great. But you want to attend these events. I've been mucking around with the CWNP stuff for at least 10 years. I'd passed exams, I'd let them lapse. Back in 2018, I decided that I was going to go to San Diego. And there's a couple of reasons behind this. One, there was beer. Two, there was sun. Secondly, I was going to get to meet a lot of old people, a lot of old friends. I was going to be able to make new contacts, and I was going to learn. I didn't realize actually how much I was going to learn. And I did my first presentation, and my first presentation was, I was really nervous. I mean, properly nervous. If you talk to either Lex, Larry, or Ashley from the CWNP, they'll tell you that I was a proper nervous wreck. And then I got to meet old friends and colleagues. And there was a specific lady there that I used to work with at Ruckus called Mo. Mo's great. Mo's a legend. But she pushed me. She cajoled me. She kept saying, "Why haven't you done your CWNE? You can do your CWNE." And I really apologise, Mo. Back in 2018, I kind of like brushed that off because it was like, well, I don't know. But I honestly, I appreciated the help. I appreciated the belief that these people had in me that made me want to go further. Resistance is futile within CWNP because we will help you, we will tilt you, we will cajole you. If you show any interest in Wi-Fi, we're gonna help teach you and educate you. Last year, I went to WiFi Trek in Nashville, and again, there was beer. We can see a pattern forming here. And I learned more. I learned so much more. You listen to the guys presenting at these events, you know, Wes Purvis, when you watch some of his stuff, you just walk away from it and you think, right, I've taken so much knowledge there. I did a small presentation more on behalf of Arista. I drank a few more beers and I got on with more people. I met a guy called Steve, who was part of some big American New York City football team or something like that. Football, it's the round shaped ball. No, the funny American shaped ball. But anyway, it was great. It was fun. You got to talk to people. And then I got shanghaied. I kind of like got kidnapped. And I got side pushed into a little library meeting room. And I'm walking and looking in the room, and there's a few CWNEs in the room, and these are all recognizable faces. So I bought some tapas, and I bought a couple of bottles of wines, and we talked for the night. And by the time that conversation had finished, I had committed to complete my CWNE in 2 weeks. I had all the exams. I had the references. I just hadn't really written. Well, I had written the projects, but I was just too scared of writing the projects, committing to the projects, finishing the project, because I didn't think my projects would ever be good enough. Never, ever be afraid to ask for help. We are here as a community. The other day, a guy reached out to me. I'm not going to mention his name, but I got a lot of respect for him. And in my eyes, I think he's better than me. But he's asked me as a CWNE to be a reference for him. He's asked me to, and I've offered to look at his projects. We're here to help. I guarantee you that when you get to that point of writing your projects, there's going to be at least 5 or 6 people that stick their hands up. Well, no, send it to me. I'll have a read, and we'll modify. And don't ever be afraid to ask for our help. Our journey to CWNE is different and varied for all of us. I can guarantee you that Devin's CWNE with a CWNE journey would be nothing like my CWNE journey. But it all comes to one thing, that we become CWNEs and we all become together and we help each other. But I have to warn you, the scariest thing about the CWNE full stop is this. And I mean, it's scary. It's not the presentations. It's not the exams. It's not the references. It's the button. So when I applied for my CWNE for the first event, I filling out paperwork and it's online. It's an online thing now. And this is Lex's fault. But there's a button. And you have to press the button to submit your work. And when you press, you sit there and you look at that button, and you go, have I done that? And you come away and you look at your projects again and you check your references again. And then you look at that again and then it took me 25 minutes to submit and press that button. And really, if you've got to that point, guys, don't ever be afraid of that button. You should be confident enough to press that button straight away. Once you become a CWNE, and people that know me, that this is what I do. I drink and I do know things. But I promise you, I still feel imposter syndrome. I still learn every day. I have made new friends. You know who you are, T Cozy Man. But I want to add a quick shout out to people that have helped me through my journey. I spoke about the Devonator, Mr. Coleman, the CWAP Master, Mr. Kenzie, Ray, Phil Morgan. Oh my, and I will never forget you, Mo. All of you taught me, you pushed me, you challenged me, you educated me. And I will commit to do the same for any CWNE prospects that want my help or my advice. And just as a quick shout out here, we cannot forget the likes of Tom and Lex and Ashley and the people behind the scene that make these things actually happen. And we cannot forget Larry. Larry sent out all these emails, and hopefully this year we were going to be in Las Vegas, and I would have been able to buy Larry a drink for his birthday, because his birthday is always round about the Wi-Fi Trek or the WTF Forum as it is this year. But I've not been able to buy him a beer this year. So now he's got lots of beers that I have to buy him. But we're going to save them for next year. And I will see all of you, wherever we happen to be next year, when all this COVID stuff is over. We will meet up and we will have drinks, and hopefully there'll be people that I've helped to get to become a CWNE. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My name's Ian Tearle and I'm CWNE 347. Thank you.
Okay, I was able to get Ian on the phone, literally on the phone. He is on vacation, having a good time, spending some time with his family and his dog, and yet he still took the time to drop in and say hi to everybody. He did ask me to kindly warn you that there might be a dog barking in the background now and then or something like that, but we're not concerned about that. So we're just thankful that, Ian, you took the time to join us. How are you doing today?
As we said before, Tom, it's a pleasure always to talk to you guys. Yes, I apologise now if there's any background noise. I am standing in a pub in the middle of Dorset, in the middle of nowhere. So, yeah, I'm doing very, very well. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, glad to have you back with us again today. And you indeed have been on the CWNE journey, and it's an interesting story about going through what you went through, completely changing industries and getting you to where you are now, which is a significant accomplishment. So congratulations on that, first of all. But the one question I think is on everyone's mind is, what are you excited about in the future of wireless?
I think with Wi-Fi 6E and where we're going with all that is going to open up a bigger spectrum for us. The capabilities of where we're going with the actual intelligence of the software is really, in my eyes, going to be critical. We're talking about AI, we're talking about machine learning, we're talking about big data analytics. And those are the things that are going to take us to that next step of a system being able to give us the information to what we need to do easily and successfully.
Absolutely. And the other big question, are you having fun on vacation?
Oh, yes, indeed. Look, it really, really rained on the drive down today, but then what do we expect? It's the UK. I'm in a pub. I'm with my family. I've got my 2 dogs with me. There's my dog. Sorry, I couldn't resist that. There's my dog. Yeah, life's good. Being a CWNE, I still feel imposter syndrome. I still, when I walk into a room, when you got the likes of, say, Keith Parsons in there or Devin, and you still learn from them every day. That's the point I was trying to make about my conversation earlier. That it's a hard thing to achieve, but people will help you achieve that. And if it wasn't for the CWNP community, but I honestly don't think I would have made it to this. So I thank everyone out there. Well, you know who you are, folks.
We're glad for that, and glad that so many people are willing to help others, and you've helped others as well already. So it's always a good thing. And Ian, it's always great to talk to you. And thank you for joining us in the dark to say hi to everybody here at the conference.
Thanks, guys. I hope everyone's having a good time. And please have a beer on Ian Tearle.
All right, Ian. Take care.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.